The time is there for them now. They've brought in Mackay to stiffen them up in the back line. Goldstein, Dersma. There's no reason now they shouldn't be making it. I think the Bomber fans would nearly tear Windy Hill down, I think, if they don't make it this year.
The Crows are going to celebrate. What a game of football. What a win for Adelaide.
Should you be further advanced than a side that gives up, say, 8 goals in a row in the second quarter and then gives up a 3-goal lead with 4 minutes left?
That's being a resultist. I mean, we should be better, but that's the difference between where we want to be and where we are now.
How do you summate that game? I honestly don't know. It's raw. It's disappointing. I don't know.
It was a disaster for Essendon and a bit hard, as you can see by the reactions. Resultist, I hadn't heard of that before. Is that a new footy jargon, and what does it mean? And
yeah, well, Brad's still talking about that they're not on probably the journey just yet where they want to get to, and they're still a fair way off that point. But
are they?
Well, on the weekend, I think Draper misses one from the top of the goal square. Kyle Langford misses one he should have kicked. Caddy misses one he should have kicked. So that's just probably, Kane, for me, the killer instinct they still are lacking. They're being beaten by the best, but against the Crows side, who were on their knees on that night, they should have just.
Do you feel let down by, like, this is your team, Lord? I know you're a bit removed from it, but there's the dry July and how the Bombers have fallen away in 2023, and also that seems to be happening to them this year. But to give up 8 unanswered goals against the 14th side, the defensive issues that have crept in that we've been speaking about for years, the question was fair. Should they be more advanced than what they are?
Yeah, I think they should be. When you're fourth on the ladder and then you lose 2 of your next 7, I think that what I've liked is, Durham and Caldwell added to Merritt. You saw Merritt; he was close to tears there because he's an absolute winner. Can they go through longer and fight for longer?
He should have refused to do that, Merritt.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have they wheeled him out after disappointing performances? He didn't want to do that. It was a club-sanctioned media
Can't refuse to do it as a skipper.
Well,
can you? I know what you mean.
I would say, look, I've done this for the last 5 years. I'm the guy you always come to. Get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Get Draper to do it.
Yeah. And aren't they? Wouldn't an Essendon fan want them to be resultists, if that is a word?
Well, I'm big on you actually strike.
It's all about results,
and you strike while your message is at the strongest. And look at the history of when teams. I know everyone comes, like say Chris Scott, for example, had a very experienced team, so he wins in his first season. But you look at it, most strike within that period. So Craig McRae's 3rd season, older list. Simon Goodwin his 5th, Hardwick his 8th. Simpson 5th. So sometimes it doesn't take that long, and it can happen quicker. So I wouldn't keep pushing away the expectations, Sam.
No, I totally agree. But I think with a large portion of those examples that you just brought up, they had a core group of star players coming through.
McRae came from nowhere.
I don't think Essendon have that group.
We often say that about a lot of teams until it surprises you and go, geez, I didn't. Like, say, Markov and Frampton are premiership players. So in that situation, so they weren't a team of absolute stars, were they?
If you compared Essendon's best 8 to Carlton, Sydney's, the Western Bulldogs, Melbourne's, it wouldn't stack up.
The only thing
closely
about it is when they haven't won a final for 20 years, they have had, say McGrath's the #1 draft pick.
Yep.
They've had picks 7, 8 and 9 in one draft. For example, Parrish, when he comes back in, so it's not as if
Parrish and Francis were both
haven't got high top-end players. Cox and Perkins playing the game.
Their recruiting still hasn't stood up over a long period of time.
I did want to play this from Matthew Nicks after the game because he spoke about karma from what happened earlier on in the year.
Works, isn't it? Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about the last game we played, but we may have popped a tiny bit of vision up of Sam and some of his excitement post the win. And I know our guys really enjoyed the win last night for a number of different reasons.
Yeah, you can enjoy the win, but I wouldn't be speaking like that when you're 14th, when Adelaide fans should be burning down the stadiums if they didn't play finals, which they're not going to do. So a good win, but you did it in the last kick of the game.
7th year in a row
without playing
finals.
Commanding performance. I wouldn't be talking about karma just yet. I'd be winning a little bit more humbly than that.
Just on the Bombs to finish, they're still 2 points off 4th. So there's still time to turn this around.
The Swans have just hit a fantastic game of football, it must be said. They've got some injuries for the first time, the Swans, and this part of the season just hasn't quite gone their way.
Yeah, they do. And
they have had a win, though, to keep Dean Cox.
They have, but I'm interested in your thoughts, Hutchie, on... I think to win a premiership, you want to be as distraction-free as you possibly can. Now, these are the headlines.
Oh, that's distraction-free.
Lordo was the first on this. He said, look, I think Dean Cox is going to stay, wants to stay, and the talk is that he'll be the next coach. But I don't know if John should have that lingering over his shoulder. Now, I'm interested. Well, I'm interested.
He's going to stay regardless.
He's now been coaching from the coach's box all season, so now he's gone down in the interchange. But now I may be reading way too much into that, and he's done that before. I get that, but I thought that was a little bit strange. If John wants to be the coach long term, he deserves that because his performance dictates that. But when you've got someone who everyone is speaking about being the next coach, I just wonder if that's a little bit of a distraction and disrespectful to who I believe is the second best coach in football.
So what's the alternative, though? As in, like, West Coast are obviously going to have interest in Cox.
Re-sign John Lamar.
Why?
To remove all that uncertainty. He deserves it.
You're the only one who's uncertain, though. You're the only person.
Lordo, do you think he's the long-term option, John Longmire at Sydney, beyond 2026 possibly?
Yeah, well, I think if it goes longer, Kane, for example, he's out of contract at the end of next year. So I'm not worried about it at the moment, but if it goes into early next year, that's when could become a distraction.
Most coaches are starting to sort of re-sign early into their last year.
Have they got the forward line, the Swans, do you think, that's going to be that premiership forward team?
Well, I think Keeney's, I think if your midfield and some of your small forwards are that good, you can get away with it. Because I think come finals time, Sam, it's not as if the big forwards destroy you in finals. So I think they want to lift, though. I think since Amati's 9 goals, he hasn't really fired.
The worst thing that could happen to him.
He hasn't fired a shot. McLean does worry me. I think he's sort of, he's lucky he's in a good side.
And McDonald's hit and miss.
And McDonald's, he's the best of them. So I think McDonald does need to lift because you can see how far off he is, some of the star forwards from other teams.
And suddenly that opens up for the Lions to be the 2 seed at a minimum and a run through. And they've got all those mids have come good. The Baileys and the Rayner was impressive, emphatic yesterday. And they've got some much better output out of this group over the last 7 games.
So the thing that impressed me, Hutchie, was they've gone up against this Sydney midfield, which we've all spoken about at their full complement, and didn't have a big game from Lockie Neal. But McCluggage steps up and kicks 3, including 2 really clutch goals. And Cam Rayner goes midfield forward and destroys Sydney and is the most influential player on the ground. So that was a big tick for me. Sydney were gallant. I mean, they've lost another game by under 5 points with the injuries that they've had, so take nothing away from their performance. But that was a strong performance from from Brisbane where you go, I think this team can win it.
Tommy Papley now out for 4 to 6 weeks. Injuries are building at the Sydney Swans, so who can get second place on the ladder is critical because get that home final and then another home preliminary final. So this is 2 to 7. There's only a game between all of these sides. So who can get second spot and who do they play in the run home? So Carlton and Geelong, that's obviously Carlton second, Brisbane third, Freo fourth, etc. But that is the top 8 sides in the run home. So it looks like Carlton, Brisbane and potentially are in that box seat to get that second spot.
It's so tight, unbelievably tight.